Welcome, or hopefully welcome back to the Reluctant Entrepreneur Podcast, the show where we uncover the stories behind groundbreaking entrepreneurs and their journeys. My guest today is Jonathon Narvey. Jonathon is the founder and CEO of Meld PR. I love that company name, a public relations agency specializing in technology companies. With a background in journalism, he leverages his storytelling skills to help tech brands gain media coverage. Under his leadership, Meld PR has secured placements in major outlets such as Forbes, Business Insider, and Bloomberg. Jonathon emphasizes the importance of crafting compelling narratives to achieve effective PR results. In addition to his PR work, Jonathon shares insights on creative processes and media strategies through various platforms, including his YouTube channel. His agency, Meld PR, has been recognized among Vancouver's top PR firms. His approach combines journalistic expertise with PR strategies to help tech companies effectively communicate their stories and achieve media visibility. I'll ask Jonathon to share his journey from a traditional 9-to-5 job to the founder of a successful PR company when I return in just a moment. Stick around. Hey, Jonathon, welcome to the podcast. I appreciate you being here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. First of all, before we dig down into my pages of questions for you, I love the name Meld. You and I spoke several days ago, and I connected that phrase directly with Spock. I can't remember if that was the actual intention, but his ability to just put his hands on people's heads and know their whole life story and what they're thinking in the moment is definitely a superpower. What made you apply that name to your company? How'd that get started?
Well, I got to tell you, you got it on the first try. It was in fact Spock from Star Trek, with that superpower to read the mind, hear the thoughts, get the feelings. Just have that instant communication, instant connection. And that is something I had, this is somewhat, maybe we'll talk a little bit about this later, but in my first marketing role as a head of communications, I had a boss who we just gelled right from the start. We weren't quite finishing each other's sentences, but we got each other. And that, I can tell you, greatly speeds up the communication process internally, which helps us get results, externally. So that kind of relationship is something I try to attain with every one of our clients. And I think for the most part, we get there.
The danger in that is what they're thinking, good or bad, right? So you kind of have to discern that information and react accordingly. What had inspired you to transition from journalism into entrepreneurship and start Meld PR? And was it a planned decision, or was it just a leap of faith? Was it impulsive? Was it? Tell me the genesis of that.
Well, there were many factors, and one of them, a big one, was money. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the media landscape out there broadly. Certainly, at the very top, if you're Anderson Cooper and making $20 million a year, good for you. If you're getting book deals and you're on TV, that's wonderful. On the other hand, for the media industry is a place where it's hard to advance. You're not so much seeking promotion as avoiding layoffs. And the
idea, I guess, is to survive. Growth is maybe that'll happen, but don't get fired, right? That's the goal.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, this has I'm not going to get off on too much of a tangent here, but
you're welcome to, no problem.
Well, this actually has implications for who is doing journalism today and why it's in such a mess. Because it used to be a proper advancement tool for working class folks with some intelligence to get up there, join the intelligentsia, and get in, become literary and journalistic heroes who got paid very well. And these days, it is not at all. If you're working class, you don't go into journalism. What this is it's a make work project for university grads who can afford to go into journalism. They can afford to lose money, basically. So anyways, future prospects was certainly, an incentive to look elsewhere. What else is happening? Because in my early career, I was freelancing, doing community newspaper writing, editing, wherever I could get some work here and there. Occasionally, I'd land, a regular gig as a columnist. And for maybe a couple of years, there was a time I was West Coast editor at Beta Kit, a technology and business focused publication. And but yeah, my journalism career was not exactly stellar. So on the other hand, if you are a journalist, you have skills. You know how to tell stories. You know how to ask questions. You know how to look for those deeper insights. And so that can be useful in the marketing sphere.
Sure.
So that's why a lot of journalists do wind up as marketers or specialize in PR. Not as many as you might think. Again, there's a cultural issue with journalists where they stay away from the opportunities that are there in PR. It's just cultural bias. They can't get over becoming paragons of the truth to becoming shills as they see it, or corporate hacks. And it's like people who work for companies need to tell their stories to move product out the door so that they can make money and innovate and help us generate the amazing world that we can live in. Thanks to all these innovators and businesses out there, they need storytellers. Anyways, so that's how I made the move into marketing. And I'll just close off this because I don't want to spend all the time on the first question. Meld PR, I founded it 6 years ago, and it's now we have a full team and I'm more on the business development side of things, just building and growing the business. My people are the ones telling the stories and meeting with clients and having a terrific time doing it.
Excellent. To your point, I remember growing up in here in the United States, watching. My dad would every night at 6 o'clock, whatever time it came on, he would watch Walter Cronkite, and Walter Cronkite was the editor of CBS News and the newsreader, and he would figure out all throughout the day what 30 minutes of news is most important to his audience. And it would all be vetted. It would be triple vetted. It would be, double sourced. It would all be, very credible. And the world believed him. If he said something, it was real. When he turned against the Vietnam War ended, it was the beginning of the end anyway. And then in later years, I think most of the major networks, back when we just had networks before cable, reorganized their news divisions and put them under the entertainment division, and they realized that they could make money. And then when the cable news outlets came out and started diversifying, very much to the left or very much to the right, and then a few in the center, but the ones that get most of the ratings are extreme left or extreme right. I think their journalists really are nothing more than PR companies, because they have an agenda looking for a story, and rather than a story that might have an agenda, they are looking to prove a point and not looking for just news. The other thing I can't stand about current news is they'll spend 5 minutes reporting the facts, And then they'll have 30 minutes or 25 extra minutes of talking heads telling you their interpretation of what they just heard. I don't care about the talking head. I'm a talking head. I can interpret it myself. I can discern it, and I can come to conclusions. I don't need 25 minutes of extra talking and shouting to do that. So the news is a mess today. So I'm glad you're out of it and into a moderately more noble profession, which is PR. Let's talk about your early days in Meld PR. What were the most significant challenges you faced, and limit it to maybe 400 or 500 challenges when you started your PR agency, and how did you overcome them? So can you name a challenge or two, and how you found a route around it?
So one of the biggest challenges that any company is going to face is in hiring talent. And this is actually something I'd come across before when I had a business before, but it was kind of a fake business in the sense of I was never able to scale it. I was a freelance consultant and basically freelance copywriter, and I dabble in strategy and search engine optimization, and I was never able to scale that because hiring anyone who was any good, very quickly they would get picked up by they would get a job paid better, or they would, if they had any entrepreneurial acumen of their own, they would go out on their own because now
they're out. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Because they think they know how to do the work, and they've got a sense. Okay, client management is this, so okay, I'll try it, and I'm not going to let Jonathan take his margin. So I had a similar issue, but it's far better as a PR agency because there's frankly so many pieces to running a successful agency that it is actually hard for one person to do it all. So what am I looking for? How did I overcome challenges in finding good talent? Well, first of all, I learned by making every mistake in the book. I hired a friend several times. That didn't work.
It's an easy path. It's an easy path. It's not the right path, but it's an easy path.
Yeah. It's like, I like this person. I know this person. They have some skills in this area. And then you hire them without really testing them. And then if things go south, as they did for me, you have to let them go at some point. They're not producing, and now you've not just lost an employee, you've lost that friendship. I don't have that many friends that I can just sort of sacrifice them on the pyre of my business. So I now I'm keeping I keep friends and business separate.
Good move. We share the same attrition of friends. I lost several that way too, and they don't come back. They're bitter, and rightly so.
I mean, it's ego. It's also here's another issue that I had. So this is tied to maybe why they left. Perhaps my management or leadership skills were not what they should have been at the start. And I think, there's a phrase I use today that I never used to use. And the phrase is, maybe I wasn't being clear. Maybe I'm not communicating very well. Let's try this.
Put it on you. Put it on you.
Yeah. Put it on you. Put it on yourself. And even if I know darn well that or I have a good sense that
it's an insincere statement, but it's an olive branch, right?
Yes. Yes. And so I use that, and I also use a phrase I picked up from the evolutionary biologist Brett Weinstein, who's an amazing podcaster. His line is, I don't think this is your best work, because this indicates, well, you must have done some good or great work in the past. And so
Right.
I'm clearly you're good. And we're just dealing with this one thing. And so by using these kinds of phrases, you avoid stepping on people's egos, and they don't hate you. So that's good for productivity.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, we share the same part of the journey. I hired people who were only guilty of being the person I hired, and I assumed if I liked them, they would be good at stuff. And there's a difference
Boom.
between being affable and pleasant and
Boom.
having a lot in common to being to have a specific talent. There's a big difference there, and but part of it is when I first started the company, I didn't have a budget for a lot of really talented people. I did everything myself, and when I needed help, I would bring on friends and family. And fortunately, the family never went south, but a lot of the friendships did, because they were the exact person I hired and guilty of nothing. And those are the hardest people to let go of. If someone steals from me, I look forward to firing them. If someone does something egregious, I almost look forward to it. And I'm kind of like a kid in a candy shop, like I can't wait for this conversation to happen. They deserve it. If I have to fire someone for not doing something, no fault of their own, and I know it's my fault for hiring them, that's a tough termination. I go home at night, my imagination follows them home when they're having a conversation with their spouse and their children, and trying to console a crying spouse that you just lost your job. Well, how are we going to pay rent or whatever? My mind goes there, and that's a tremendous responsibility for any business owner to have. Is giving someone a sense of security as much as possible. The other point you made was, you said you're not a very good boss or a very good manager. I think entrepreneurs certainly make the worst employees. If you were to go back to a 9 to 5, you'd be fired, or at least I would be fired in the first 6 minutes, because we just speak our mind. We're kind of bulls in china shops, and we're not politically correct. We just have a mission, and nothing can get in the way of that mission. I think we are also terrible managers, because the nature of an entrepreneur is we are like serial arsonists, but instead of fires, we're chasing ideas. And we're constantly going like a pinball in a pinball machine, bouncing off the bumpers. We're constantly going from, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, that's a good idea. And where at least I lack are the details, the ability to kind of finish it, because that's not exciting. I'll be half through a project and then see the other shiny object and chase that. And my team has to follow me with either a dustpan and a broom to sweep up my failed projects or finish my projects. And before they even have a chance to finish it, I'm off to the next exciting thing. And I think that's what makes us us. We have the vision and the passion, and we see things differently than mere mortals do. We see possibilities where everyone sees obstacles. And we think we can overcome anything because of our passion and our persistence and our gut and all of that, and our arrogance. And I think that many employees really don't understand that's just the nature of an entrepreneur. And the good thing about working for an entrepreneur is they have a job they wouldn't have had before, because you just created something out of nothing. The bad thing is you're going to be very frustrating to work with and for, right? I don't know if that's your specific journey, but that was certainly mine.
Yeah, it absolutely resonates with a lot of my experience. And, I think, even before I became an entrepreneur, I was aware I had certain personality quibbles. I used to have a terrible temper. These days, I'm a pretty cool as a cucumber kind of guy. but I wasn't always that way. And so, yeah, like certainly the first year of the agency, I was hard to deal with. I'm not a guy who has tantrums or things like that, but I would, without shouting or yelling or anything, just sort of leave people feeling worse off, and that's terrible. That's a terrible thing to do.
Right.
You want to inspire people. Yeah,
Right.
it's like
it's the opposite of motivation. Yeah, it's demotivation.
Yeah, these people have other options. There are other agencies out there and other jobs. So part of the way I solved my hiring problems. There were some other errors that I was making was, looking to get a deal on. There's wages in PR agencies can actually be pretty high. And I wanted someone who just sort of, resume looks great and you've got tons of experience. Great. You'll be good to go. So you just hire someone and if they don't work out, that's really bad now because they've just met the expectations are so high, they're bound to fail. Because It's like I'm already paying you like 25% more than I really think I wanted to pay, but we'll see if the results are great. Then that's awesome, and that rarely works out. So I would try to hire people who were sort of marketing generalists, like they good writers, and I'm like, I can just train them up on the PR side of the skills, like tips and tricks, and they'll figure it out. And it's like you were saying before, I'm now getting rid of them for like they didn't have the skill in the first place. I was supposed to create that in them, and if they didn't pick it up, that's kind of on me. The training wasn't maybe rock solid, and maybe I wasn't like you said, management. Maybe I wasn't checking in enough. Maybe I wasn't. Doing quality control, and then there's the flip side of you do too much quality control, and then it's micromanagement. So ultimately, the solution for hiring for me was just hire ex-journalists or journalists who are looking to cross over, like myself, and that. So you can pick up people with very good skills who don't realize how much value they have in the marketplace.
Right.
So I mean, the leverage thing is nice, but the main thing is an ex-journalist can pick up pretty much most of what they need to know about PR in a week, versus a marketing generalist who maybe has written ad copy or has done some web copy, search engine optimization type stuff. It might be 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months before they pick things up. And if they're at 3 months and they're just picking things up, now I'm upset and
Sure.
they're demoralized. So I finally figured out the right people to hire, and it's working well.
Good. It is a trial and error plan in terms of hiring people, and it's sometimes a little bit counterintuitive. One of the mistakes I've made in the context of HR is someone is really good at job A, so I want to move them to job B, and maybe there's not a lot of commonality between job A and job B, but I think, they're good at that, they must be good at this, and we would promote to their level of incompetency and then fire them. It was our fault. They were fine where they were. They were happy. They were productive. They were efficient. They were effective. And then we kept moving them around until we found something they weren't good at, and then out, which is not fair to them. And, I've learned that if we're going to move somebody, I mean, people do also want to get promoted. So, you want to honor that. But we need to make sure that we set them up for success and not set them up for failure, which we have done many times over at least the early part of our corporate experience. Were there moments of hesitation or doubt when you decided to start the company, or did you have all the bravado and ego and arrogance and all that like I did when I started my company? Did you to erase any hesitation that might be there?
I was burning with a lot of emotions at that moment when I started Meld PR. Let's see, there was enthusiasm about the next step, some fear, not a ton. Mostly, I think the thing I was feeling at the time mostly was I was upset. So I'd recently basically gotten myself. Well, I wasn't fired. I quit, but I had my last job before I started Meld PR was I was working in house as director of communications and doing PR off the side of my desk for like 2 hours a week and generating awesome results on the PR side, by the way, but and also for the other stuff I was doing, whether it was newsletters, web copy, strategy, whatever. I was having a blast, but like many workplaces over the last decade or so, the CEO had wokeified the place, and I wasn't a fan. So, and I'm not the kind of person to start things, but if people are throwing weird claims out into either the company's Slack officially or just announcing them at lunch, is sort of, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but if people want to start something, I'm happy to go
pile
in there.
On. Yeah, sure.
And anyways, turns out it's not awesome to pick dumb fights with your CEO.
It's not awesome. That's a good way to put it. It's not awesome. Yes, I agree. It's not awesome. Yes, it's anti-awesome.
Yeah, I got pulled into a couple struggle sessions, and it was pretty. Yeah, it's basically confess your wrongthink, and I want you to talk with this employee and this employee and this employee who I've vetted, who will impart to you the wisdom and the proper way to think about things. Which, by the way, had nothing to do with my job. It was just like pure ideological, political stuff that, is just outside of the business. And I was like, well, okay, I'm not doing that. So, things got, I was not pleased with how that went down. But I had only myself to blame for, I would say, most of it, for reacting. So I was out, and my wife was not too pleased. I think, to be honest, I was kind of surprised by the amount of support I was getting, because it was kind of a cushy job, and paid well. But I guess her thought was, well, if for you to leave, it must have been really bad. So I'm just sorry that happened to you. And I was like, yep, well, okay, well, the pity ends now.
Pity party over. Yes.
What I did was that week just reached out to all of my basically all the sources that I used to have for technology industry stories in journalism over the past number of years, and said, hey, I know how to get you press coverage. In fact, I gave you your first couple pieces of press coverage when I was working for this media outlet. I know the news, so maybe you want to work together. And it was a pretty clumsy approach, but it worked. I brute forced my way into a number of my first couple clients, and but it strikes me now. Am I answering the question you asked? Where were we at?
Totally. No, we were talking about challenges and overcoming challenges, and I admonish you to limit it to 300 or 400, and so far you're on that track, so you're good. Let's switch it to building your brand. These days, everyone's a content creator. These days, people are writing their own PR, press releases and things like that, or at least they think they are, and there's a lot of junk content out there. I see it in my industry. I'm sure you see it all the time in your world. How did you go about differentiating your brand from a typical PR company? I mean, one way was the name, right, which had an intent, but that might get lost on some non-Trekkies. So, how do you stand out?
Yeah, I will talk a bit more about the name since you brought it up. In that it was selected to target clients because it's mostly people of a certain age who are interested in sci-fi and then often got involved on the tech side of things, and they have just a love of innovation.
So you know your demographic,
yeah. So that's kind of certainly a I don't know if it's the core, but it's a big demographic that we go after. It's those people who were inspired by Trek and sci-fi to build amazing, innovative companies. And so yeah, there's and by the way, as a bit of an aside, that's kind of the mission of the agency I founded was, and this goes partly to strategy of how to build a business, who to go after. I decided, we could be a PR agency that just works for everybody and anybody, and then I thought, well, I mean, no, that's too confusing, too boring, too hard to scale. We want to work with the people who are building the technology, the products that make our lives so awesome. So I grew up, I'm not particularly handy. If you need something fixed, I'm not your guy.
You're not that guy, right?
Fixed, not your guy.
You're not Joe the plumber.
No. I definitely am one of those guys who I need something fixed in the house. It seems simple. I will absolutely hire a contractor for that. So I recognize that actually in a previous age where it's only a few we're a few decades away from back when guys used to sort of after dinner have a couple beers with the boys and just go into the garage, tinker with the engine.
Well, the garage was the original man cave back then.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have worked in that scenario either. Like going back to the days of like Og throwing spears. Like I'm not your guy, but I can exist in this in this age because we have such a technologically advanced, specialized civilization. And so I want these companies that are producing these amazing products that make my life and our lives possible. Like life has never been better, at least for, people living in the USA or Canada.
Totally agree.
And it's because, of a lot of them are these unsung heroes, often engineers, technologists, starting companies. They know product. Maybe they're subject matter experts. They've been working in a field for 15, 20, 30 years. They get it. They think they know what is a major problem that they can solve. And then they start a company and they fail. And a lot of the time it's because there's no story there. There's no brand there. They don't stick out. It's like, what do you do? And maybe you do solve a problem, but maybe there's 9 other competitors that also solve the problem in a slightly different way, or maybe the same way. You can't compete. So I want to help these unsung heroes to succeed, and that's our mission, and that's what we went after. I think, yeah, I think every company has to sort of, find the niche. What is the thing that makes you passionate, and what are you going to go after? It's a big, hairy goal to go after.
One of the comments you made kind of brings me to the last question I was going to ask you, but I'll ask it now. How important is it? Well, let me start with this. Many business owners are like wallflowers at the prom, waiting for someone to ask them to dance. And how important is it to choose your customer as opposed to sitting back waiting for customers to choose you? Did you ever start off with the wrong type of customer, or did you know out of the gate exactly the type of customer you were looking for?
With the launch of Meld PR, I knew exactly who I was going after. With the like I said, like basically a fake company, a consultancy, freelancing. I would write for any company, cafe, chainsaw manufacturer, real estate, software. It didn't matter. Whoever could cut a check, I would write for them. And in that way, I was a commodity. I was just I'm just jack of all trades. I'll do anything for anyone. Not a good business model. It's an option. It's something to do when, hey, you got to pay your bills.
Right.
At the same time, if particularly in the writing sphere, if you're now you're competing against everyone on Upwork who's charging, I don't know, $5, $10, $15 for like a page of copy versus,
and you're competing with AI now and all
yeah.
that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I hit a nerve there.
Well, this comes up on the regular. We actually have had to in our PR kickoffs with clients. We've had to just say no to AI because, well, often a big part of the job. And sorry, I know you asked a different question a moment ago.
That's fine.
I'll get into this. On the AI side of things. So what are reporters looking for, and what are we looking to help them with? Reporters need expert commentary from someone who is directly involved in the thing they are writing about. Otherwise, that's the expert. Now, if you go to ChatGPT and you get a question from a reporter, you go to ChatGPT to answer it. Well, ChatGPT is just going to go through
everything ever written,
million documents.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's going to give a good summary of that versus what you really want to give a reporter is something like, oh, well, that's a great question. Well, I can tell you the last 100 customers I've talked to in the last 2 months, this is how they're dealing with this issue, and this is how we're helping them with that. And one particular tactic we've used to address this problem is XYZ. And when we do that, we're seeing a 257% increase in this and that. You give them something very specific, a mix of anecdote, a mix of, hard facts, numbers crunched, ideally for internally, but if you have to grab them from elsewhere, that's fine. They need specific beats. Generic ChatGPT can't do that. And believe me, we've tested it out because I would have loved to speed up things. And like if ChatGPT can just give us all the answers we ever need for clients to respond to reporters, well, that makes this job super easy. So we tried it. We've probably at the insistence of clients who are just like, I don't have time to answer this. ChatGPT it, or here's my answer that I ChatGPT'd. And when we submit those, it's probably been 20, 25 times we've attempted this. Reporters reject it. We can sniff it. It looks like ChatGPT to
I can
us.
always tell. I write a lot of technical articles. I write a monthly column and other things for my tech industry side.
Yeah.
And I read a lot of columns, and I can totally sniff out a ChatGPT. Now, maybe I'm not catching all of them. Maybe some of them are really good, but I can totally sniff out. There's a certain writing style. Like any sentence that begins with "in the realm of," I don't know. It's like 16th century English, but ChatGPT likes it. It's probably reading a lot of Shakespeare and a lot of classic, literature, and it's combining it with modern knowledge, and its writing style is quite unique. And
Yeah.
the content, I can't always vet the content, but the writing style will always give that away. I use ChatGPT regularly, but I use it for research purposes, for, I interview a lot of subject matter experts on my technical podcast, and I have to get myself up to speed with their expertise so that I know what questions to ask. But I would never be so bold as to submit one of my columns as a ChatGPT. I will research data from it, but I will not. But then I will discern it and I will put it in my own words, because I'm not as much afraid of it being wrong as I am me being caught. And I don't want my reputation as a columnist to become soiled by someone else who also spots, the sign of AI. So, but you're right. It's an easy out. If I were in school again, I have several friends that are professors at universities, and I ask him, what's the deal about ChatGPT? Do you ban it? And he goes, well, no, we don't ban it, because that's like in the early days of calculators. I grew up in high school when calculators first came out, and they were banned from schools because it was considered cheating. And then, of course, more enlightened thought came out of like, well, no, they're here to stay. So let's make sure people know how to use them correctly. And but GPT is not quite there yet, or any AI. It's not quite there yet. It's by the time we're done talking today, it might be there. It's moving so fast. But the problem with ChatGPT versus a calculator is, a calculator, you still have to know how to do the math. You have to know how to input the formula. With AI, you don't have to know anything about it, and that's the danger, because it is frequently, or maybe frequently is too big a word, it's seldomly incorrect, but it does happen. I've found it, and
so accuracy is not really the problem. Being correct versus not being correct. You're right. It's not often directly wrong, but is it interesting? So this is the other part of building your brand. Is right. In order to be discovered, typically it's an easy trick is to be counterintuitive and contradict the common assessment that everyone else is saying. ChatGPT is terrible at that.
Right. So because it's not improvising, it's compiling, right?
Yeah.
It's just compiling. I don't like the word artificial intelligence. I think it's a bit misleading because there's nothing artificial about it. I think the better word for it is acquired intelligence. It went to school, only it read 125 million books, and it just pulls from all that knowledge. Unlike us, we forget most of the stuff. We have poor retention. It has 100% retention, but it is always someone else's work. So the chance to get something novel and new and make assumptions is not within its programming, right?
Yeah. It precisely. So I have this love-hate relationship with ChatGPT, which, I'm also using it for other things. But, if you're looking to, whether on a budget, just on your own, you can do PR on your own, by the way. It's possible. You can do anything on your own.
Sure.
But if
you could build the extension that your wife wants at the back of the house, it's not going to look good. She's not going to be happy, but you could do it, right?
Yes.
It won't pass code.
In principle, these things can be done. But anyways, the best way to do it, if you're looking to get your brand out there and compete by being known for being different, standing out, you actually have to give the reporters what you know, what you have experienced, and maybe they'll find it interesting.
Yeah. There's a PR company within our industry. I won't name who they are, but they know who they are, and they will print anything. They will, do press releases. That's their gig. They do press releases, and press releases Their clients like press releases. I like press releases because they're free, even though almost nobody reads them because they're just filled with content like this. Today, I saw on LinkedIn, someone posted a link to a press release in an industry trade. And
Right.
I'll take the company name out, but it said X company reports strong growth. And I looked at that and I'm like, good for them. What do they do? I know who they are, but someone who didn't, that would not make me want to write a purchase order for something. That wouldn't even want to make me inquire. It's like, okay,
Right.
well, congratulations, you had a good year. I'm sure your child is attractive and smart and can sing well too, but that doesn't land on my decision-making process. Yet it makes the client very happy because they see their name in print, and everyone likes to see their name in print, particularly next to something positive. But so what's your take on it? It's almost a common saying, even among civilians, that all press is good press, right? There's no such thing as bad publicity. Just publicity is publicity. I don't subscribe to that. I definitely think there's bad publicity. But what's your take on that mindset?
I think that I actually I think you're right that there's enough exceptions to there's no such thing as bad publicity that does it hold as a general principle? Maybe, but yeah, so a few things about what you just said. Number one, about the press release that you just okay, maybe that's not going to make you go out and buy their products if you see that they're growing, but maybe that wasn't the point of their announcement. Maybe they're looking to highlight all of their amazing growth and they've 2x, 5x, 10x over the last 6 months or a year, and they're looking for investment. Maybe that was the purpose of putting out that announcement. So I'm not against companies putting out that if it's in the proper, if it's going to the right audience. So sometimes you'll see stories and you'll think, okay, I don't even know why this is coming up on my feed. What is this? Some of it might be paid. It's basically an advertorial, paid placement. And that's maybe why you saw that in lieu of a news article you might actually be interested in reading about. It's just an ad, basically.
Yeah.
So we draft press releases fairly frequently, but if there are viewers out there who think that a PR agency is all about drafting press releases all the time and pitching them, I can tell you that's not the case. Well, maybe there are some agencies that do that, but most of the time for our clients, we're not drafting press releases because press releases are not the only way. They're not even most of the way that you actually get press coverage. The biggest way we get press coverage for our clients, and any company can get press coverage for themselves, is figure out what are you actually paying attention to for your business? Which outlets, whether TV, radio, newspaper, magazine, whatever it is. Who is the particular reporter who covers that stuff? Who tends to cover it? And now send them 2 paragraphs. You don't need to send them a full press release. Send them 2 paragraphs. Look, Joe, I loved your last story about this and that in the Globe and Mail. I have your next story, which ties into this thing. This is the next thing. Astounding fact, amazing anecdote, very spicy, data-driven quote from this CEO. What do you think? You want to chat? You want to learn more? That's pretty much it. 2 paragraphs. You can get that done versus a press release that you spray and pray and maybe it gets nothing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's talk about the numerous pitfalls trapdoors and booby traps and mountains and walls that any business founder faces. What are the most common mistakes companies make in their PR efforts? And wait a minute, I started that question wrong. I'll edit that out. Here we go. What are the most common mistakes people make? I look at this. You brought up a good point that maybe that PR was not meant for me. Maybe it was meant for investors or something, even though they never actually put a number. They just said remarkable, which is, to me, that's not a financial number. That's like, what's remarkable to you is maybe not remarkable to me. But at any rate, I'll give them a pass on that. But what are the most common pitfalls when people are doing PR themselves that they just fall into this trap? I'm sure you've seen it 100,000 times. And maybe even your clients ask you to do something and you have to have that kind of like guided discovery kind of conversation with them to have them draw a different conclusion. What are some of the most common mistakes made in any kind of PR?
Well, specific always beats generic. So just going back to that press release that you
remarkable,
didn't particularly like, that with their strong growth, and now you're telling me there was no number in there?
No, not a single number.
That's malpractice. That's terrible. I mean, because that doesn't just, you're not just pushing out a dumb story. This is wasting everyone's time, including your own. So you do want numbers. Statistics are great, but not necessarily just statistics. Like if they had something like, this XYZ company has seen strong growth of 230% over the last year. Well, that's a number, but what does that 230% mean? Is that
right?
One client?
Did they start with zero? Yeah. Did they start with $1 and then they went to $230?
Yeah.
That's 230%.
Yeah. So we actually ran into this very issue with a client just last week where they didn't want to share this or that number and they didn't want to get into specifics. And, for whatever the reason was, maybe the numbers, maybe they were having trouble, just sort of literally calculating it. It's like, I don't understand my business. That's sort of a much bigger and different problem. If they don't know how much money they've made or they don't know what their growth rate is, they should be tracking those kinds of things. But there are some clients that are very cagey about the numbers they want to share. They only want to share good things. And if the numbers are a bit mixed, they don't want to share these things. But if you don't share these things, then you won't get picked up. So it's either you throw the numbers out there or the facts out there, and you'll now have a shot at getting picked up. So yeah, being too cagey is really bad. Being too cagey on a call with a reporter is at a whole other level, and that's another client that we were asking, that because they had gotten an interview. We'd set up an interview with them and a high profile outlet, big time tech journalist. And so they go on the call, and I asked them, so how'd it go? How did the interview go? And they say, well, I think it went well. I think I was successful at dodging her question, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like I didn't exclaim the what, but that was in my head.
It's going to be good for ratings, but not their ratings. It's going to be good for horrible ratings for them.
Yeah. Our client was like, for 5 minutes I was dodging her question. I think I got out of it. I got to tell you, if you think that, you didn't get out of it. This is the same as you get arrested and you think you can outsmart the police interrogator. You can't.
Right. You can't.
It's total delusion. So, but I have a trick. I have a little tip for people who want to be, for whatever reason, maybe a very perfectly valid reason, they don't want to share a particular data point.
Sure.
that's fine. Think of the reporter's question as the starting point of a negotiation. They're saying, I want this thing. I think this thing is what I really need. And if I come away with that, I'll be happy. And you say to them, well, I'll tell you what, I don't have that data in front of me right now, but I'll tell you what I do have. And you hand off something
throw them another
else.
bone. Yes, exactly.
Throw them some other data point that you think is astounding. And maybe they'll think, oh, actually, that is a better story.
Better question. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And usually you can, if you understand your own business, you'll be able to throw that out without doing extra research. Like anytime a reporter asks you a question and you think, oh, I'm going to have to get somebody down at this or that department to crunch the numbers for a week and come up with a spreadsheet to give them the answers. It's 99.9% of the time, a reporter is never going to ask a question of that nature. If you think you have to do a week of research on your own to come up with the answer that they're actually looking for, you might have misunderstood their question or what they're going after. They want something that you already know what it is because it's important to your business and it's important that the reporter knows. So, there
was a real life story many years ago, probably in the 50s or 60s, where an American actor, Rock Hudson, who was, the male star, always had a gorgeous female co-star, and the press, some member of the press got wind of the fact that he was gay, closeted, and interviewed the studio exec and, was going to publish that story. So the studio exec or his PR people said, well, wait a minute, if you don't run that story, we'll give you another story on another famous actor or actress, and we'll supply everything you need. And, we've got the goods and we've got the receipts, and we'll hand over all those receipts if you publish this one instead of that one. So they did exactly what you are suggesting in a tacky, horrible, time, but that worked. They basically offered the dog a different treat. When our dog is chewing on something and he just won't let go of it, and he's, damaging our slippers or shoes or something, we'll bring out a treat. And all of a sudden, he's like, oh, I want the treat because the shoes don't really taste good, but I'll go for the treat. And it's the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. So just to finish that off, sure. The way to think about a reporter is, and I think some people get nervous about talking to reporters. Oh, what if I say the wrong thing? These people are not the cops. They're not the Grand Inquisitor. You're not gonna. Well, I mean, if you say something, it's possible you could say something really dumb that you weren't supposed to.
Something juicy, they'll bite. Yeah, sure.
But try to think of them as, this person, on the other hand, they don't work for you, but they want to work with you. Their whole job is about putting out an interesting story, and that people are genuinely interested in reading, or watching, and so they want you to say something astounding and amazing and really cool.
Or scandalous, if you choose to do that. I mean, they're gonna take the bone that tastes better, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to control which bone you give them.
Yeah. So just work with those.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. What advice would you give to budding entrepreneurs? There's someone in my audience that's thinking about starting a business. Maybe they're not happy with their job. Maybe they have a product that they really want to, share with the world, and they don't have any other way to do it but to do it themselves. What advice would you give them, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, naive, that you wish someone had given you before you started?
I think I've got a few answers. One sort of, I'm thinking back to an old line from Bill Gates. He said, if I was down to my very last dollar, and I wasn't sure how to spend it, I would spend it on PR. So I don't agree with that. So don't do that. If you're starting a business, you're starting out your new path, and you're like, oh, you know what, I what we need here is to make a big splash, to create a big story, and if we do that, suddenly we'll have all the business we can handle, and it'll be great. So I'm not gonna focus on the other bits and pieces, and that's the opposite of my advice. I'm often contacted by companies that again, these are the amazing innovators, very interesting technology people who are building something. They're taking a huge risk and going for that big reward, and they're like they think of public relations. They're reaching out to us because they think they can substitute PR for a more sustained and organic and strategic marketing effort. And what I tell them is, look, PR is a force multiplier. What you want to do is like you before you spend $1 on PR, you need revenue, you need customers, and before that, you need a product, and you need to understand product market fit. And if you don't have any customers yet, have you at least talked to people who could be customers and shown them what you've got, and done the basics? And then let's say you're past that early stage. Okay, so you've tested out a few things. We're doing some email marketing. We're doing some Google ads. We're doing these other pieces. And okay, that worked. We got some revenue in the door. We got some repeat customers. Okay, now we're starting to cook with gas. So my advice is focus on the fundamentals. If you haven't built out the fundamentals, like I'm talking about just the basics of having a website with a contact page that works, where every time if someone submits their email or calls, there's somebody there. It's not going to. This annoys me to no end. Is when I call the business number of a company and it goes on hold, or I get cut off.
Right.
Like just the basics. There's a lot of companies that haven't gotten that right. So focus on that, because if you get let's say you do put out a big release or just a nice pitch, it gets picked up in 10 places and it's amazing, and there's all this interest coming to a website that doesn't work, and you're not getting the leads.
I a little over 30 years ago, I got my pilot's license, and when I was going through my training, the instructor, and all instructors end up saying this, is the three basic rules of flying are aviate, navigate, and communicate. And if I were to apply that to what you're saying, the communicate being marketing, if you spend all your effort on communication, you're not flying, you're not navigating. Or in this case, in a business case, you're not ready for scale. Your website's not ready. Your phone systems are underpowered and overutilized. Rapid growth is a luxury most small businesses cannot afford. Unless you're backed by unlimited funds from venture capitalists or something, you cannot afford that. And I learned that the hard way. We were doing rapid growth, and a lot of it due to marketing. And we would take the profit from selling one machine, and then we'd have to build 3 more. And there wasn't enough profit to build 3 more. And then we'd sell that 3 more, and then we would sell 6 more. And then we had to take the profit from 3 and build 6. And we were doing tons of business, lots of revenue, but very poor cash flow. And we were always running out of money. We were profitable once everything came in, but we were always reinvesting the profits to handle the scale. Well, I shouldn't say scale, to handle the growth. So there's a difference between growth and scale. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, falsely believe that growth is the answer to all that ails us. Again, we're having trouble here if we can just grow. And what I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize is when this part grows, your trouble grows exponentially. If you're not ready for it. So to your point, before, I totally agree with you. I think that's very sage advice. Before you turn on the marketing machine, before you tell, Jonathan at Meld PR to, okay, let the horses out of the stable, let's go. And it's effective. And then you can't build, you can't scale, you can't answer the phone, you can't respond, you don't have enough people. Now you've just pissed off all these people who would have been happy clients otherwise, and they may never buy from you again. And of course, as we all know, if you're happy with something, you tell a person. If you're unhappy with something, you tell 10 people. And bad news travels faster than good news. So I think that's very sage advice, is to be ready to, keep it internal until you're ready. Concentrate on building your company. Concentrate on building your systems and your procedures and your KPIs and, all that stuff before you turn on the marketing switch. And then be ready for what's coming your way.
100%.
Good. So last question. How did you define success in your early days of, before you started the company? And how do you define it today, if it's any different?
This is a really good question. And I might... Okay, I guess many years ago, I was at a business seminar and I was listening to a big VC or angel investor and technologist talk about his experience and in building many businesses. And he talked about the difference between a scalable business and a lifestyle business. And I've built a lifestyle business. This is, I mean, people do sell agencies. But it's a bit different than, let's say building a software product.
Sure.
Writing some lines of code and then selling that 1 million times versus, having an agency that, well, we just got a bunch of new clients, but that means we have to hire to handle the clients, and everything has to scale properly and balance correctly. Just like with your example a minute ago, you're balancing cash flow and all the rest of it. So what, tied to that, I've built a lifestyle business. I have a pretty good lifestyle. I gotta say I have a team that works very well. These people are all, very highly trained professionals who get results. And that wasn't the case when I started out, where I would hire people. And because, as we covered earlier, I hired wrong. Oftentimes I'd be backfilling myself, doing the my employees' work. If something was more not quite up to the standard that I wanted, I would go into the trenches and do work myself, and then get into that sort of stereotypical problem of now I'm running, instead of working on the business, I'm working in the business. And so today we've got processes, people, and happy clients, and a good level of, everything's sort of coming up roses now. And to the extent that if I want to play hooky in the afternoon, I can do that. If I can take a vacation now. I can rely upon the team to do work and provide value, and revenue's coming in, and our clients love us. So we've achieved that level of success, which maybe that's not a very ambitious goal, but that's what I wanted to achieve, was a level of freedom in my own time to spend, with my wife and just, spend on whatever I want to do. I mean, not that I'm taking a bunch of time off. I love what I do.
Right,
and
but
so
you can. But
yeah,
but you're not shackled there. You're there because you want to be there. You can leave anytime you want. And I think when people know that, they may not take all the time that one thinks they would take given that opportunity, because they know they can. So I think we can tolerate more. We don't get burned out. I think we get burned out when we know we're tired, we're working hard, and we're going to do the same thing tomorrow and the next day and the next day. That messes with our heads. I think if we knew, like in the early days of my company, I did all the coding for the machines. I'm a horrible software. I would never get a job as a software programmer or coder, but I knew enough that I could do it myself, even though it wasn't. If a good coder looked at my code, they'd laugh, but it worked. And the customer never sees the code. It's all compiled. So I did all the coding, and I would go in on a Monday at 7 a.m. and wouldn't come home until Wednesday night. And I would think I'm only there for 6 hours, but time just, you're in the zone. Time is unmeasurable at that point. But I knew I could do it because I knew that once I got to the last line of code and tested it and it worked, I was done with that. I could go home and rest. If I thought that I had to do that all the time, I don't think I would have gone, 70 hours straight. I would have, after 8 hours, I would have said, I can't do this anymore. I got to go home and eat, or I got to go home and sleep and whatever. Got to take a mental break. But knowing that there's an end in sight, knowing that you can go on vacation anytime you want to me, gives the person more strength and more endurance and more perseverance, because they know that it's their decision to do that, not a situation that's making them do that, right? I think that helps a lot, and that's good advice. Well, we are about out of time. Jonathon, thank you so much for being my guest. I love talking about PR. I'm the kind of guy, before we brought tablets on airplanes, back in just the print days before the internet, I've been traveling. I travel a lot, and I've been doing it since the mid-'80s. So I would go to the airport bookstore, or a shop and buy a bunch of magazines. I'd buy a Car and Driver and a Road and Track and a Popular Science and maybe a Newsweek or a U.S. News and World Report, something like that. And I would first flip through, not read any articles. I would look at all the ads, and I was a critique. I was like the Simon Cowell of advertising. I would go, that's a sucky ad. That's horrible. This one's pretty good. What are they thinking? And I would just look at all the ads. And once I was done with all the ads, I'd start going back and reading the content.
Was it?
Because I found ads way more interesting. But then print ads were either print, television, or radio. Or maybe the Goodyear blimp. There was no other, medium to choose from. So I found, I had a huge appreciation for clever ads that made me laugh, or ads that made me think, that provoked me. I would realize in real time, like, I don't need the product, but I love their ad. This is amazing. And so that's what I like to do. But today it's entirely different. Today, everyone is their own PR person, so they think AI is out there competing with the world. And there's a lot of agencies, some of which are in my space, that are just, they just put out garbage. They just put out stuff to make the client happy. And the client is not demanding results. The client thinks that as long as their name is in the press, it's good. Look at that, I'm getting my money's worth. And to me, marketing is about, it's relational. It's relationship. It's about creating an emotional connection with your potential customer. And many times I find that marketing is less about talking about us and more about talking about them and becoming an authority in your space by providing value. You doing this podcast, giving all your marketing, not all, but many of your marketing tips away, and you've done it before. I've watched several of your appearances on podcasts and your own podcast. And I think that concept pays off in spades, because you are now an authority. You call yourself the PR hitman or something, but you're knocking them dead. And you're doing that, I think, partially because people look at Jonathon, people who are looking for a marketing company and then see that content. No, you're not spending every syllable trying to sell them into, making your phones ring or having your website light up. You're providing content like this, which is valuable. So instead of saying, he talked me into calling him, you're leaving them with the opinion that you're an authority in that space. And I would rather call Jonathan before I call some random company that says, we're the greatest. We had a great year. It was remarkable, our growth. And, that doesn't drive authority. That drives something, but it doesn't drive authority. So I think what you're doing is right.
Well, thank you. I'll just say a few things. I know we're coming to the end. With advertising, and by the way, I think advertising can work for a lot of companies, and obviously does work very well for a lot of companies.
Sure.
And I think you were dead on with maybe the clever advertising we used to see years ago. We're not seeing a lot of those campaigns anymore. A lot of advertising seems very generic. It kind of blends together. I don't think maybe you caught the Jaguar ad campaign that just came out, and it looks like the same as anything. The thing that advertising, it's an instant result of, hey, you appeared in somewhere, and it shows that you had enough money to pay for an ad, and hey, there's something in that with this must be a successful company if they're spending all this money on advertising. I guess that there's something I should notice. And if the ad is clever, then wonderful. That cleverness rubs off on you. That's what you want. And then, as you said, with PR, that is more about on the thought leadership side of things. It's about building credibility, because you don't have to spend $1 million to put an ad out there, you do have to spend $1 million to put an ad out there, but you, let's say on TV, but to get quoted to get featured, let's say on the nightly news on TV, maybe you just have to say something really smart. And then Now you're the leader. Now you're the one saying smart things. And boy, I can actually use that. I can see how I could use that in my own life, in my own business this week. And that is absolutely what you want. So that's what we try to provide.
Awesome. Well, for my audience who would like to get more information on Jonathan's company, if you're watching this on YouTube, right down here where it says show more, click there, and there'll be a link to Meld PR. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, when it's safe to do so, go to your podcast app, look at the show notes, and Jonathan's information will be there as well. Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and your sage advice and your experience with me and my audience today. I really appreciate it, and I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It's amazing.
Thanks so much, Mike. It was great to be here.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Reluctant Entrepreneur Podcast. A special thanks to Jonathon Narvey for being my guest on the show. The Reluctant Entrepreneur Podcast is available on all major podcast sites and on the Reluctant Entrepreneur YouTube channel. We've been busy recording future episodes with fascinating guests, so don't miss out. Subscribe to the podcast to be notified when new episodes are released. If you're an entrepreneur and would like to be a guest on the show, please let me know. Visit mikeconrad.com/podcast and apply to be a guest. Just remember that's Conrad spelled with a K. If you'd like to reach out to me, my email address is mike@mikeconrad.com. Once again, that's Conrad with a K. If you're interested in my book, The Reluctant Entrepreneur, Anatomy of a Business Startup from Uncertainty to Unstoppable, it's available as both a paperback and a Kindle version, both available on Amazon, and as an audiobook available on Audible and Amazon. Thank you so much again for listening or watching. Until I see you again, be unstoppable.